We okay to start? I'll take that as yes. Right, okay. Welcome. I think we've got some apologies or whoever, yeah.
Yep. Yes, we've received apologies from Richard Entwistle and Claire Griffiths. We wish Richard well. He's got a few health problems at present, else otherwise he'd be here.
Okay, so let's just go on to the minutes of the February meeting. Has anyone got any comments on the minutes? Anything that needs changing? Take that as approved then. And on to matters arising. Obviously, as always, we've got an extremely busy meeting, so we'll try and move through as quickly as possible. Do you want to, yeah, Martin.
Chair, just on the presentation by Alan Simpson from the Sustainable Travel Ambassador, are we going to be coming back to the transport plan and comments later in the meeting?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, we have an item on the agenda on active travel, and within that we've attached the local access form response to the EMCA consultation, transport strategy consultation, so can pick up then.
Right. Matters arising.
Okay.
You want to, okay, so, yeah.
Should I comment?
Please.
Okay. Within the minutes, there's a number of actions asking for any feedback to be submitted to either Nick as the chair or secretary. So if members do have any comments that they wish to provide, then we're happy to take these forward. In terms of a site meeting at Dovestones, we've not yet identified a date, but we'll look to identify a date at some stage. And the other item that we've asked is whether I can pass over to Phil Mulligan, our Chief Executive, to give an update on our anniversary celebrations and for funding. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. It's good to see you all here. In fact, some of you I saw earlier in the week and heard some of what we've been doing for the 75th, and were there helping us celebrate the 75th. So I don't really want to repeat myself. I think I'd like to just start by asking you to imagine what the Peak District would be like had we not had a National Park Authority for the last 75 years. What would access be like? What would the landscape look like? How would your enjoyment be different? You know, national parks were set up for a really important reason. They took the best, kind of most dramatic, most precious, most special landscapes in the country and gave them the highest form of protection and designation possible. And that has not always been an easy road. Obviously, we've not always had the resources we've wanted, but as an authority, what we've been able to achieve for 75 years is incredibly significant, and this place is the way it is, loved and cherished by millions of people. Literally hundreds of millions of people over the 75 years have been here and enjoyed it, and millions come every year now. And they're able to access it, they're able to understand it, they're able to contribute to it because of the National Park Authority and the partners, because the authority is only really possible through the partnership working, because although we have a brand and we have some standing and we're obviously the planning authority, nearly everything else we do is achieved through partnership, as the management plan is a partnership plan. So, you know, everyone in this room really, or every organisation around this table that's here or would be here, can really be proud of what we've achieved over those 75 years. And we are spending a bit of time and effort to mark them, partly because on our 70th, it was the middle of COVID, and all our plans were to put on the shelf then. So we haven't really had an opportunity to reflect on what those amount of decades means. So what we've done is on the actual anniversary day, on the 17th of April, Some of you will have heard the church bells ringing across the parishes, which was lovely. We planted, you may have seen as you came into Alden House, we planted a sapling which was from the Sycamore Gap sapling from Northumberland National Park. We've had this amazing tube map, underground map, well not underground map, but tube map of the national park produced as a 75th celebration. This is a really brilliant map. This is one of the things I'm most pleased about. Not only because it didn't cost us a penny to get done, because some amazing designers did it for us for free, but it's a different way of conceptualising the national park for visitors particularly, to think about what's here, how they connect, how they can move around. And with this map, we emphasised public transport routes in, the rail routes in, some of the main bus stops, the main parking spots to encourage people to park in proper parking places, some of the lesser known features, and just to give people a sense of there are trails, there are ways of travelling, there are ways of interconnecting. All the cycle hires on there, the youth hostels are on there to encourage people to stay a bit longer. There are some heritage features. So it's a really nice resource. Not something you would want to see anyone navigating up a hill using as their main map, but certainly if you're back home before you set out, for people, because it's online, to have a look at and really plan a journey and think about not just coming in the car and what they can see. And because this is also a digital map, we will be adding on, hopefully, we'll be adding on layers where you can click through and actually, you might click on a spot and it will show you the walks that go from that spot, and it will show you the Miles Without Styles trails and so on. So there'll be more functionality that we'll be able to build into this map. So this was a real highlight of the anniversary. But we also this week launched 2 new anniversary ales, which was fantastic. It was actually about raising money for access work and bringing access partners together, but it's nice to have that there as well. And then the 4 national parks who are 75 this year, so that's us, that's the Lake District, that's Dartmoor, and that's Eryri in North Wales. So we have commissioned a report that says what 75 years of national parks have achieved and what the future needs are for us. So that is a report from all 4, but we're actually launching that report here in this room in the middle of July, and we have the Minister for National Parks coming as part of that. We have Mary Ann Ocher, who's the chair of the Protected Landscapes Partnership, coming to host that event. There's about 80 people confirmed attending at the moment, national organisations, government, access organisations, all sorts are there. So that's going to be really an important event. And then we're also in the Buxton International Festival, we have an exhibition, our archive unlocked, because we are the only national park that had professional photography on the roster right from the beginning. So we have an incredible history of what the national park has looked like over time, most of which is in filing cabinets and in drawers and not accessible. So we've had funding to digitise the best images, to categorise them and to store them properly. And there'll be a small exhibition at the Buxton International Festival. There'll be a larger exhibition in our Bakewell National Park Centre. And there are also going to be a couple of talks. I'm giving one and Matt Scott Campbell's giving another about our moorland restoration work. So that whole kind of package is, I feel, a suitable amount of celebration. We're not going over the top, but we are acknowledging it's a very special moment and it's a very special place. So I think that's by way of update, Sue.
There was one item at the last agenda, at the last meeting, which talked about funding for national parks and restructuring. And I just wonder if you could give an update for that, because we were waiting to hear settlement at that time. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So I think things are much more positive than I thought they would be when I was last here. So they're not brilliant. We are still getting a funding cut, but but I was expecting a bigger cut given the mood music and the state of public finances and so on. So what we've actually been given as well is pretty much a 3-year deal. 1 year is certain, the next 2 are indicative, but at least we've got a 3-year horizon. So we've been given the same amount of money as we've had last year, so that's a cut because it's gone down by inflation. But given I was expecting, up to 10% cut further on that, it's not as bad as we thought. Because I was expecting a worse settlement, I actually made changes here, cost-saving changes that were very painful to do. But what that's done now is it's meant that we're looking at the next 3 or 4 years now with having to make no further cuts, being able to build, being able to consolidate, actually spend our time doing the work we need to be doing, not the work to reduce our size, which takes so much time and saps morale and so on. So we're in a relatively good position, relatively. We're also being given additional funding, which is wonderful, okay? But it is always one-off, or it's always has to be spent in year, or you're only told about it at the last minute. So it is great, I'm not complaining about it. And it's significant amounts, so we're getting 1.6 million to spend on capital this year, and we may well get that for the next 2 years as well after that. We've also got a one-off additional 1.7 million this year. And we're using this money to invest in all sorts of outcomes really, but primarily in ones that can help generate a revenue income going forward, so that if the grant is cut again in the future, we've at least built up our ways of earning money, which also we do in a way that helps visitors access the national park or move about better or park more sustainably. There are also other bits of funding, significant bits. So we've got the FIPL 1.6 million, so that's really good, and there's an access element to that. And then FIPL also has an extra 831,000 this year for wildlife habitat improvements as well. Then there's active travel money, there's access for all money, there's things like our landscape observatory, which is groundbreaking use of photography and AI to produce really quick, detailed maps, land use, and modelling future use and scenarios such as climate change and impacts on species. And this has been picked up by DEFRA nationally, and we're growing a big team here now to produce this kind of mapping potential for all protected landscapes and national parks. So there's lots of opportunity. Moors for the Future are looking to deliver their biggest year ever, £6 million of moorland restoration. We've got a £10 million landscape connections project with a lottery, which some of you are involved with, which is about enhancing nature around the White Peak trails and bringing new audiences to them to experience and get closer to nature. And we are just this week submitting a £100 million bid to government for landscape recovery across the White Peak. So actually the challenge is kind of keeping up with all of that opportunity now, which is wonderful, rather than the challenge we have had, which is how do we get smaller. Is that okay, Sue?
Okay, thank you, Phil. Has anyone got any questions for Phil just right now? Jeff was first, I think.
All that capital's wonderful. Have you got the people now to deliver it? I mean, it's just bonkers, isn't it? That on the one hand they're cutting back your ability to do stuff, and on the other hand they're bunging quite substantial sums at you to do. I just despair sometimes, but it'd be interesting to comment on that really.
Yeah, no, I don't despair. I celebrate actually. So it does depend what you do with the money. So if you just buy something, if you buy something big, then that doesn't take that many people. But if you do lots of small projects like to improve our estate and assets and repairs and maintenance, that does take a lot more capacity. But a lot of that we needed to do anyway. We just didn't have the money to do it. So we've got the people there who would be doing that. So that's okay. We can also capitalise some of the staff costs if it's capital projects, so we can bring in extra people to deliver the projects and cover them. So yes, it puts pressure on the system, but you know, I want this place to be running hot because it's so vital what we do, and it's so important, and it's urgent. So you know, we need to be busy. So I actually don't mind that too much.
Ben?
Thanks for the update, Phil, and well done on the whole funding situation. Much better position than last time you came, and well done on all the celebration stuff. I don't want to make a petulant remark, but I am going to. Where's the river? Not once is there a picture in here of any water, and on the map that you've created, the thing that's at the heart of the Peak Park doesn't feature. So what I would like to say is that in the next, you've done 75 years, I would hope in the next 5, if not 1, the park will be as open to celebrating its blue spaces as it is its green, because it doesn't appear once in here, and that's a real shame. So I don't want it to sound petulant or negative, because what you've done is brilliant, and I think the map's great, but what a shame that the thing that created the dales and the edges that we climb on doesn't appear anywhere in this document.
I don't think that's petulant at all, Ben. I think it's a brilliant point. I think there's a difference between the photography imagery and the map. I think with the photography imagery, yes, we do need to be aware of all sorts of representation, and we've definitely got better in some areas in that, and I'll feed that back to the team. In terms of the map, I think that's I think you've pointed out something there that we could have possibly done a bit more with, and we didn't in this map, and that was a blind spot on my part in commissioning it, so thanks for making aware of it. We will be adding other layers to the map, and it may be possible that we can do more on that. I mean, the Derwent Valley Heritage Way is on there. Of course, that's along a river, a lot of it, but I did totally take your point. Thank you.
Jez?
Yes, thank you. Yes, very, very good. Just funding in the national parks, it always feels it doesn't quite have the profile in the country that they should have, and that's when things start to get cut, same as the Rights of Way network. And if you go to America, their national parks feel like they're much more, it's more of a thing, it's more of a national thing, and they do two things. I think they do quite a lot of cross-promotion, and they have, essentially, you get a pass to go and visit them all. And I'm not saying that you have a pass to visit our national parks, but somewhere in there, people will support the National Trust, you know, they'll support the RSPB. Is there something that could be done to generate a revenue stream from that? Because I'm sure people would like to actually support it. And, you know, maybe there's some sort of, I don't know, priority car parking, I don't know, whatever it might be, to encourage people and actually have a subscribe to the national park and support your national park.
Well, I'll say some things that might be broadly supported, and some might not be very popular. I think first of all, I'd say Rob sitting at the back there, he would probably say that US national parks have had significant cuts, and you know, probably worse than ours to some extent. The other difference, of course, is places like the US. It's a pay barrier that you have to kind of pay to get into a lot of the national parks. So we are free to access. So it is a bit different. So, and my dear colleague Craig there, you know, has a model. His organisation has a model where there is a membership fee for joining, and there are lots of benefits from membership. Not only the sort of general supporting heritage and landscape and nature, but being able to park and access buildings that you would normally pay for. So we don't really have those opportunities very much in the national park. But what we do have is car parking. And I think people going and using our car parks and paying for them is a way that they can contribute. And the thing that might not be so popular is the fact we are introducing charging for some of our toilets. We're upgrading them, improving them, and then asking for a 50p use for the toilet. So that's not something I would choose to do, but it is something we need to do, because you can come to the national park, you can access it all for free, you can go on the Monsell Trail that costs us $400,000 a year to provide and keep safe and open, and not pay a penny towards the national park. But if you actually go and use the loo at Millersdale now, you will be making a small contribution to what you are enjoying. There is also the Peak District National Park Foundation, which is a charity where people can sign up as friends in regular giving, or support the kind of campaigns, you know, the trails enhancement type campaigns that they do. So, yeah, I think there are various ways we're doing it, but because we are essentially free to access, it does limit us. You know, we rely on goodwill really and support that way.
Oh, one more then, please.
Thank you. Phil, you mentioned right at the very end of your funding summary, £100 million for landscape recovery in the White Peak. You got any more information on that, please?
That's the Morridge Hill Country landscape recovery bid. It's looking like it's going to be about 100 million. Now, that is over 20 years, and there is a significant amount of that from government, but also it will rely on private finance as well for, you know, ecosystem services and so on. So it's actually this week that we're submitting it. This is the second round of landscape recovery bids. Craig's got round one landscape recovery bid. There's going to be a round 3. It's going to take a while till we know how successful that is, but what I hear is that it's probably, you know, one of the best quality bids in the country by quite a long way, thanks to the amazing work Jackie, Rag and others have done in the team there. So, you know, I'm optimistic that we'll get that through, and that could be really transformative around Worslow and Morridge.
Okay, thank you, Phil. If that's it, we'll move on. We, as a LAF, haven't responded yet to the funding proposal for the Peak Park. Do we think that we should? We have a show of hands, yes or no? Yes? Yeah, okay. Could I ask then that people submit any comments that they have to me and to Sue, and then we'll get that sorted and off as soon as possible. Okay, next one's membership. Sue, do you want me to cover that, or you? No.
Yep, I'll keep it very brief. The one item to report this time is nominations for chair for future meetings. Just in case I've missed any emails volunteering. Thank you.
Yeah, please volunteer, it's fun. It is. No, really, it is. Okay, then we'll move on to next one, which is Rob from DC Rights of Way Maintenance, please. I've volunteered for October's meeting, so you have some time to prepare your email saying yes, please, for February. Okay, thanks, Rob, please.
Yes, please.
Is my head in the way? Can people see, or is it reflecting off the back of my head?
Good morning, everybody. Those that don't know me, my name's Rob Gretrix, and I'm the Senior Engineer for Public Rights of Way at Derbyshire County Council. I'm back in this. This is a new role following what we call the 4A part of the transformation programme that Derbyshire County Council Highways is currently going through. Previously, I was team leader in Public Rights of Way before taking this a comment, dealing with highway inspections as a whole. So this is a new post, as I say. It's a permanent post in the new structure, and we hope to complete the transformation programme later on this year for the whole of the highway service, including Public Rights of Way. So I've just put this first slide up because this is obviously sets where we come from in terms of what we do as a highway service in relation to Public Rights of Way. We've got section 130 of the Highways Act, which is our duty to assert and to protect the public rights of those that use and enjoy highways. And then also we've got our statutory duty to maintain under section 41 of the Highways Act. I thought it would be useful just to go over what we did as a service last year in terms of Public Rights of Way maintenance. These are the schemes that we've been able to complete. schemes that will shortly commence. And looking at that, there's only one scheme in Ashford in the Water within the national park that we've yet to complete. Obviously we're quite a diverse county, and we've got the whole of the county to think about. And last year, most of our work was concentrated elsewhere in Derbyshire outside the national park, unlike in previous years where we concentrated heavily within the national park. So those are the schemes that we've either completed or very close to completing from last year. And just to illustrate and put up a few pictures of what we've been able to do. This is a route in South Wingfield, Public Bridleway 13, that wasn't a very nice route. It was heavily overgrown. The surface was in poor condition, so we've addressed those issues. We've provided a surface, a sustainable surface, and we've completed some gate works as well. This is a route in Ashover Public Bridleway 145. This route has been quite challenging to the County Council for a number of years. We don't like to use tarmac, especially on bridleways, but this route, as I say, presented challenges for us, and tarmac was the only solution, and we only did that after consulting with the British Soil Society. They recognised the challenges that we faced, and obviously we just couldn't keep throwing stone at a route that was constantly being washed out, resulting in that tarmac surface, and that has gone down reasonably well, not only with the locals but also with the BHS. So in terms of the current financial year 26-27, our capital scheme submission was approved by Cabinet last November, and that's what's in flight at the moment. So moving on to the programme itself, those are the schemes that we're hoping to complete in this financial year. The work has been commissioned. It's now with our delivery teams to design and implement those schemes. So hopefully when if I'm invited, that is, to address you in a few months' time, most of this work should be in flight. One of the routes in the National Park is Chisworth Public Bridleway 10. As you can see from that slide, it's been heavily washed out, so we're hoping to address the drainage and then reinstate the surface of that bridleway. New Mills Public Bridleway 20, again, this is another site that's really eroded through water, and as you can see, the drains that have previously been installed at that location have been damaged through water erosion. So we intend to address that and then put the surface back. So moving on to the second part of the programme, which is signposting, because obviously we have a duty under Section 27 of the Countryside Act of 68 as a highway authority to maintain signs on public rights of way where they leave a metal road. We've got £190,000 in the pot this year to deliver signs where signs are missing, damaged, etc. At approximately 400 locations county-wide. Sites are identified by users basically. So signs that were reported to us last financial year, basically inform what we do this year. Naturally, the demand always exceeds budget, but we will get in as many signs as we possibly can within that £190,000. So that's it from me on the capital schemes. You sent me a list of sites which are of concerns to the LAF, and I think one of those was Bamford Clough. Bamford Clough in Bamford itself is a challenging route, as you know, and has been closed for a number of years because it's been out of repair. Again, due to water erosion. We carried out some works in, I think it was 21-22, to put the surface back into good working order, and the solution that we came to was that we will put it back into tarmac, which we did. We completed a safety audit of that, and obviously when you use tarmac, it can sometimes encourage more use, which causes more challenges. So what we're proposing to do with Bamford Clough is an experimental traffic regulation order. That will be implemented shortly. We don't have a date for that, but obviously we will consult the LAF when we do. The proposal is to introduce a one-way system for motorised vehicles in a uphill direction. The experimental traffic regulation order operates as a trial first, consult while live on that sort of mechanism. Consultation takes place during the implementation rather than in advance. So if you do a traffic regulation order, generally you do the consultation first and then make the order. This is the other way around. It allows the authority to assess the measures under real world conditions, real time conditions, and we gather feedback based on user experience. Now the experiment may remain in force for up to 18 months, and within that 18 months the majority of the consultation takes place in the first 6 months, but obviously it can go on a little bit longer if we need to, and we would accept comments and representations over the whole. It'd be good to get a true picture over a 12-month period, so you go through all the seasons, and then we can make a decision. We can only, as I say, we can only do the experiment for up to 18 months, and then we have to make a decision on what we do. Now that could be that we make that experiment permanent. It may be that we amend it or we scrap it and we have a rethink, but obviously that comes later down the line. We have to recognise that boats carry vehicular rights, and we have to consider those rights in what we do. So we have to balance, the relevant management of that route and preserve, if we have to, the lawful use of it. The next site was Beeley Boat 13. We are aware that is requiring some attention. It's disappointing because we did carry out quite a big scheme on that in 2024, which I think the LAF was consulted on at the time. So we need to understand what's gone wrong there and the reasons for the failure. I've spoken to Chatsworth this morning to arrange a site meeting, because obviously they've got quite a big landholding in that area, and they may be able to feed into understanding what's gone wrong before we put it right. from what I'm hearing from Chatsworth, it may look like this will have to be a capital scheme for in the future. Now, although it's not on that list that I presented this morning, we do have opportunities to draw down capital money for individual schemes if we need to. And if that's what we need to do here, then that's what we'll do. Jacob's Ladder at Stony Middleton was also on the list, Sue. This is a route with a permanent traffic regulation order on it. I understand that there are contraventions to that TRO, which isn't really a problem for Derbyshire, because we're not the enforcing authority. The police are the enforcing authority for contraventions in traffic regulation orders. We checked the signage. The signage is in place, so it's clear. So it really is a matter for the police to police it. I've set up a meeting with, or I've been invited to I've set up a meeting with Stony Middleton Parish Council, and I've invited the police, and that will take place next week, hoping that we can come to some agreement to make sure that TRO is upheld. We've also got a meeting planned for Jacob's Ladder with the National Park and the British Horse Society, because I understand there may be some FIPL money to improve the surface on that network.
Which Jacob's Ladder?
Stony Middleton. Yeah. That meeting will take place later this month, as I say. Jacob's Ladder at Edale, and the Edale Bridleway 12 and 13. I'll have to come back with a written report on that, Sue, if that's okay, because I don't have the information to date to be able to update you on that. Thank you.
Okay, Rob, thanks very much. We've got about 10 minutes for questions. I'm sure there's quite a few now for Rob. I've been made aware of the Bamford Parish Council meeting that was held on Monday. I'm sure they'll feed back to you or via councillors, I think, Rob. But as I said, they're quite worried about the experimental TRO on Bamford Clough and the possibility for accidents and so on while it's going on. So I'm not going to read out what they sent me, but it's they're quite concerned as a residents group. Questions from Susan? Anybody else afterwards? Okay.
Morning, Rob. Susan Hobson, Derbyshire County Council councillor. Obviously, we have quite a lot of dialogue, and thank you, Rob, and your team for all that you have done. Some of those areas that you've spoken about are ones that I am sort of familiar with. You made a point about water erosion, but I do think a lot of off-road vehicles cause an awful lot of damage on these. They may have legitimate access, but they do cause a lot of damage. And we've had dialogue about Beeley Lane, that the farmer who's got, he needs to access his fields and his animals, it's causing great difficulty to him. One of the things, and I don't know, the very wonderful celebration on 75th birthday party, so thank you for that. I spoke to somebody from South Yorkshire, apologies, I can't think who it was, and they have successfully changed the designation of at least one of their lanes. I know this is different to the experimental. Is that something that you would consider, changing the designation of some of these roads which are boats or whatever, which are being effectively quite destroyed by transport?
The measure we'd use in those sort of areas, Councillor Robson, would be a TRO. It's very difficult to reclassify a public right of way, and you could imagine the number of objections you would get from whichever group you're trying to sort of declassify from using. The appropriate tool would be a TRO, for example, and we have a number of TROs, as you know, throughout Derbyshire, and in fact the National Park have actually used powers that they've got to apply TROs for environmental reasons.
I'm pleased that you're meeting Stony Middleton Parish Council, because that used to be my division last time. And yes, there is the TRO, but basically there isn't any enforcement. And the people who live at the bottom of there, I know, you know, it's awful. It is awful for them. So I appreciate everything that you're doing. I noticed that Darleydale Boat is on the list. We've had dialogue about that, so thank you very much for that. Another thing I'm interested in, I think, without going to specific areas, you were at a parish council with me the other night where parish councils report their footpaths, which are very important to them. I appreciate you haven't got the money, but you know, there must be some sort of listing about when eventually these footpaths would be either the foliage cut down or the path improved. Can you just reassure me that there is a big list somewhere that you are working through?
Yeah, we encourage everybody to use our portal to report things, and if they are reported to us via the portal, we do endeavour to inspect them within 10 days of us receiving that report. Some days that can go a little bit, sometimes it can go a little bit over that due to staffing and annual leave and things like that. But in general, we do intend to respond within 10 days. Now, if it's a safety issue, we will respond. Once we've inspected it, we will respond, and we've actually got an out-of-hours team that we can call upon if we need to. So if there's a missing manhole cover, for example, or a damaged grating or a sinkhole, we can respond very, very quickly, just to make it safe. Things like potholes we can deal with. If it's overgrowth, we can deal with that within time constraints that are set out through the Acts of Parliament. If it's general deterioration, then that can sometimes take a little bit longer. It'll be inspected and it'll be made safe if it needs to be made safe. But if it's to resurface something, then obviously that does need to be thought about and planned in. The list that I've shown you this morning is the capital scheme, so that's for bigger works than general maintenance. We also have a revenue budget for that. It's only small, but if we need to patch or resurface a part of a footpath or a bridleway, then we have got the opportunity to do that. But obviously budgets are limited.
Yeah. Thank you, that's most helpful. Thank you.
Okay. Charlotte, I think maybe Jez got his hand up. Charlotte, then Jez.
Hi, Rob. Thanks very much for the information on Bamford Clough. When the experimental TRO is active, will there be some way that users will be able to report their findings? Quite a lot of people these days have recording devices either on the bicycle, on the horse, on their vehicles, and will there be some way that they'd be able to log incidents that would then graphically show you what, rather than having to rely on people word of mouth, if there is video footage, if that could be uploaded somewhere. I think there is quite a legitimate concern, and we won't know whether that's founded or not until the experiment starts. It's a very fast surface, so anything come downhill is going to acquire quite a lot of speed. You're relying on the goodwill of motorised vehicles not to come downhill but to only go uphill. There are no passing places on that route, and there is very little refuge for vulnerable road users, and I think particularly of families, because it is within a village setting, and that's a route out of the village that families will use. And I just wondered what the recording and reporting process would be for that. Thank you.
Yeah, that's one of the things we're just trying to iron out before we actually implement the experimental order. There'll probably be a generic email address to send responses to, and then obviously we'll monitor those through the consultation period. We actually do have monitoring equipment on site, and that's been in place for some time, so that we should be able to access information from that to inform, you know, the type of user and when it's been used.
Jez and Martin.
Yeah, thank you. Two things. First of all, it was very depressing to see more water erosion pictures. I think Jill might remember it was a few years ago now we talked about how we keep doing schemes where they get washed away and you've got tons of gravel being washed into rivers. It feels like it's not really got any better, and so I'm just wondering, is it really, is every new scheme being looked at properly with a view to getting the water management right before spending £100,000 on it or what have you? The second thing is, Councillor Hobson asked about, have you got a way of looking at the state of the network, I think, sort of. If you look at how some councils do it, like Somerset, they essentially have their asset database, and all the faults that come in are attached to that, and any member of the public actually can go and look at the faults at different styles or paths or what have you. As I understand it, Derbyshire run a CRM system instead, which is essentially customers email in problems, or residents email in problems, and they just go into a system, and you can't easily see from that, has this path got 25 problems on it? And I wondered if that's still the case, and if it is the case, it can't make it very easy to manage the system, and having a look at the Somerset system might be a really good thing to do.
Yeah, just on your first point, water is our biggest problem, and I think climate change is probably the cause of that. Sometimes there isn't a solution. There's nowhere of taking water off. We've got quite a few routes that go through cutting. They're very low. There's nowhere to discharge to collect water and discharge it to. When we do schemes, we do try to find a solution to it. We also what we call a fence-to-fence approach. So we'll deal with everything within the limits of the highway. So if we've got vegetation we need to control at the edge, then we will do, as well as providing a new surface. On your second point, no, we can see everything through our customer system. Our customer system talks to another system that talks to, obviously, my team, basically. And we can see everything that's going off, and that does help us to inform what we deliver as capital and revenue works.
It'd be very nice if that was made available to the public.
Martin, if that can be the last one for this, we need to move on. Thank you.
Rob, thanks very much for that presentation, really interesting. Just a quick thing is whether we could have, first question is, could we have the red dots put back on the mapping portal for signposts? I think we've got it for vegetation. Could we have both? And my second question really is a bit like following from Jez, really. Sort of, I operate a system of parish path wardens for Derbyshire Dales, and I know that when we have a parish, when either if a new parish path warden takes over, usually particularly in the south, it generates probably 20, 30, 40 issues, and it just seems a bit reactive from rights of way. And I understand about the funding. We've heard from Phil. We know rights of way across the country is desperately, woefully underfunded, but it does seem to be a bit reactive. And I know where I live in Wirksworth, which I'm also parish path warden, many thanks, it is really good if you want to come and walk, but that's because I've reported and done it. So it's, in terms of an overview, if we look at the 6 districts, the 5,000 circa things, just explain how you have a whole picture of, sort of, if I said a parish like Marston Montgomery, what would you say?
Well, we are a reactive service. We rely on the public, user groups, parish councils, the national park, informing us where the problems are. We just don't have the resource currently to inspect the whole network, as we do with our highway network generally. We just don't have that resource. So we are reliant on the public being our eyes and ears on the ground. I can't really say any more than that, Martin. You report something, we'll take a look at it, and we'll either do something or we won't do something, but we'll let you know, or we should be letting you know.
I think this is back to the funding for the national parks. I think for all of us user groups, and every time you contact your elected representatives, councillors, MPs, we need to be saying more money is needed, and the benefits of having a rights-of-way network or a national park is absolutely essential, the benefits for health and well-being. So it is a question of supporting you as best as we can.
Yeah, I probably agree. I do agree. I do agree. As you know, public rights away are only a small team. I've got 6 inspectors when we're fully staffed, and we are fully staffed in the inspectorate that deal with around about 5,000 inquiries a year, from beginning to end, basically. So we just don't have the capacity to inspect the whole network on a annual, biannual or whatever basis. Sorry.
Okay, we've just got one comment that Sue will deliver from Nick, LAF member.
Hi, yeah, Nick Blaney also sent his apologies for not attending the meeting. Sorry, I should have reported that earlier. But he also provided some comment from the mountain bike users and the fact that Derbyshire County Council maintenance work has always been a hot topic for them. So he's very sorry he can't be here today, Rob. But we'll be very pleased, no doubt, to hear that you'll be coming back. I'm not going to repeat the comments that have already been discussed in the meeting in view of the timing. He's just emphasised the need for drainage to be considered at the outset and building that in. He's also mentioned about retaining where possible, underlying natural hard surfacing. He's also said about where we can look at interest and character of paths whilst understanding the need to improve accessibility. And the final question, two final things. The issue of landowners, where there's volunteer groups who are very keen to carry out works to public rights of way. Now that could also be potentially picked up this afternoon when we meet with Peak Park Conservation volunteers. So we can take that forward unless Rob's got any comments. And he's emphasised what was discussed at the previous meeting about consultation with key user groups at the earliest opportunity. So thank you very much, Rob, for coming today and for providing updates. We also had another member who can't be here today, but who was inquiring about a route in Eam as well. So I will pass that through. Thank you.
Was that the Eam 31?
Yes, I think
and
so.
Temporary closures.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you want me to do your written response to that?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on now to Jill, please.
Right, thank you very much. It's good to hear, Rob, because obviously you all know I started my life in the Rights of Way team, so it's good to hear how things are going on there. I think one of the things we're not very good at, and as Rob's explained, there's a very small team of people who deal with 5,000 kilometres of rights of way, which is the same length as the road network in Derbyshire. We need to do more preventative things, so we need to clear drains out, we need to cut back vegetation before it gets unmanageable. And I think there's a role there for volunteers. We have volunteers from groundwork working on the Pennine Bridleway, so that, you know, not everybody wants to do it all the time, but digging out cross drains is so valuable because then it stops erosion further down and cutting back vegetation. So I don't know if there's more scope, and we've had this conversation before when we went to Bruntsbarn talking about volunteers doing preventative stuff. If there's anything that can be done under the parish council maintenance scheme, does that still exist where parishes have money?
It does, Jill, yes, yeah. And the invites have just gone out to parish councils for this year. There are only small amounts in there, but it does permit them to do minor drainage works. So yes.
Yeah, so that's really valuable. And I think you also spend money streaming back certain paths every year as well, don't you?
Yes, our contractor started this very week. And the first cut should be completed by mid-July, because obviously we work north to south, east to west, covering the whole of the county. That information is on our website.
Right, thank you. And it will have grown this year massively compared to last, won't it? So the other thing that would be useful to pick up on, because I know both of the LAFs, the Dad LAF and this LAF, have had some concerns about how the online reporting works, and I think there have been some improvements to that. But rather than dwell on it here, we wondered if it'd be useful to have a joint subgroup meeting just to talk that through. Rob, I don't know whether you can bring a technical person to it, just to hear what it's like from the public's perspective and people who are reporting those problems. So we'll get in touch and arrange something, probably over Teams. Would that suit everybody? Or do you want to do it in person? I don't know. If you want to actually demonstrate it, it might be. We'll think about that anyway. So I know it's something, Martin, you've been particularly interested in, haven't you? So yeah, okay. That's all I wanted to add really to that. But yeah, thanks, Rob. It's good to hear all that. So I've circulated a copy of my report. AIM 2 has been of interest as well, where we've been looking at definitive map modification order applications. So apart from the information that I've put in a table showing what's been happening over the last 3 months since the forum last met, we've had a subgroup, again with the DADLAF, looking at how those applications are processed and what progress has been made. And Legal Services have very kindly shared some information on all their live cases, which I've only had fairly recently. So Charlotte and Martin, I'll share that with you. And we maybe get together with the DADLAF and have a look at that. But basically there are 111 live cases at the moment, so even with 2.5 members of staff, that's pushing 45 cases each, and I'm sure perhaps the most experienced ones will be carrying more. And some of the stages are quite straightforward. Some of them are massive research, preparing a report, going through all the evidence and the information. So Angela Gretorix is going to come to the DADLAF meeting in September to talk about that, and we'll get an insight then into the working of it. And it's just great to see it all transparent, and so everybody can understand what is involved in that.
Could we get an invite for the September meeting, then we can come and hear? Thank you.
Yes, I was just going to mention that. Yeah, there will be an invitation. So that's really all I wanted to say on the definitive map modification orders. Under AIM 3, I've tried to give an update on progress delivering and maintaining the likes of the Pennine Bridleway, sorting out the missing gaps around Glossop, White Peak Loop, what we're doing with the active travel master plans. The one for here is Glossop. And hopefully at the October meeting, I'll give a bit more of an update on the Hope Valley active travel master plan. There was a consultation done, I think it was back in 2024. So we'll pick up on that and what we're doing to take that forward. I've also put in some information about the Safer Roads Fund schemes. So we've got those for Long Hill, Via Gellia and Snake Pass. So there's some information there into what improvements have been done for walkers, cyclists and horse riders. And I think, Rob, you're in the loop as well for that, aren't you, with our engineer who's trying to organise those works. So hopefully that's helpful. Under AIM 4, there's quite a bit of information if you go onto the link about what Walk Derbyshire has achieved over the last 4 years, encouraging more people to get out more. And again, an interesting article about a guided tour of the White Peak Loop in I think it was Derbyshire Live, wasn't it? And I won't say much more about AIM 5 because I've probably said quite a bit about volunteers and what role they can have. But we've had very positive comments when volunteers have been out there from members of the public going past. And the value for money, the SLA that we have generates 3 times as much in value as we pay for it. And then there's also the benefits that volunteers get of getting skills, meeting people, being out there, being physically active as well. So thank you. Is there any questions?
Is that?
Oh, right, okay. Yeah, well, it's in that report, I think. But do you want to say something about it?
Not sure, I haven't seen the report actually.
It's an action from the last meeting.
Right, okay. Yeah. There's an action from the last meeting to provide details of the White Peak Loop going into Buxton. So at the moment we're commissioning quite a lot of designs to pick up the bridleway at Topley Pike and then heading up over the river, up through Woodale to Water Swallows. But at the moment we're concentrating on looking at the feasibility of getting across the road and the feasibility of the bridge, because we need to look into those aspects first before we then plough on with the rest, and obviously keep landowners in the loop and everything else. We're looking within Buxton at more. We've had some preliminary designs done for us, and we're now picking sections of those up to detail design. So at the moment we're looking at getting into the Buxton railway station, and then there'll be subsequent sections going from there to get the route into Harper Hill and pick up the White Peak Loop that's next to the Parks Inn. So there's lots of work going on, bringing in different pots of money from EMCA to do that design work. So there's a lot of work being commissioned at the moment. There's a link in my report to a page on our website about the White Peak Loop. So Carol does try and keep that up to date with what's happening and what we're doing. And we have refurbished the boardwalk at Roseley fairly recently. So hopefully that should be a lot better. It's a lot sturdier and it's also more grippy. And I've heard from several people who've cycled over it now. It's not like going like this. It is quite a smooth ride now. So we put these new planks in on top of the old. So we haven't had to, get rid of all the old ones. So that's strengthened it as well. And it's got a surface where the water drains off. So we shouldn't get too much icing either, because it could be quite slippery at times. We shouldn't get that problem in the winter months. So, is that enough? Yeah.
Jez has got a question for you, and Susan, quickly if we can, so we can move on.
Yeah, just very quickly. I heard rumblings again about the Monsell Trail and being reopened for rail, and I don't know if there's some lobbying going on again, but with a new set of county councillors, maybe there is, and just wonder whether there was anything happening about that you knew about.
I think we said we'd pick that up in the item on active travel, if that's all right.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's fine. No.
Councillors Hobson.
Just to say, on a local level, thank you for that excellent work which has been done just down from Roseley. It is a major improvement for people, and Roseley Parish Council are working with Derbyshire Dales and yourself, looking at the improvements to getting across the A6 to sort of like continue to Bakewell. So thank you to everybody involved in that.
Right, thank you very much.
Right. So we move on to Tim.
So voting Tom.
Tom. Okay. Okay, great. Next one then is Tom Evans. Who's going to talk to us about Peak Cluster.
You've got a clicker.
It's on the mouse, I think.
Oh, it's on the mouse.
Sorry.
Previous.
Yeah. There was a clicker. That might work.
Okay, hello everyone. For those of you who don't know me, some of you do, hi Ian. I'm Tom Evans, I'm Strategic Planning Manager here at the Peak District National Park. So I manage the minerals team, so we do the sort of county planning function for the National Park, so all planning matters related to minerals and waste. Part of my role is also responding to NSIP proposals, nationally significant infrastructure projects. So Sue's told me you'd like to know a little bit about those and the process involved. I put some slides together. I'm afraid it is quite wordy and probably a little bit dry, but it is a process. So just the only real way to sort of talk you through that. We'll touch on Peak Cluster, an NSIP project, which is potentially going to affect the park at the end. And I'll take some questions and answer what I can on the basis of the information we've got at the moment. Okay. So what is an NSIP? Essentially, it's a big project. So generally, if you want planning permission for something, say you want the planning permission for an extension, you apply under the Town and Country Planning Act, and the authority says yes or no. So an NSIP is a bigger project, essentially, which usually covers more than one local authority area. So it's a regime to allow the government to approve big projects which cover multiple local authorities. So if you try to do it under the Town and Country Planning Act, you might have, for example, Derbyshire say, yes, it's okay, but Leicestershire say, no, it's not. So it's a mechanism for the government to deal with big projects. So there's 16 different types of development which may qualify, covers a diverse spectrum of development. So it could be highways, harbours, reservoirs, railways, pipelines, power stations. So there's criteria, like sort of by scale really, which need to be met for it to be classed as an NSIP. So what is development consent? So as I said previously, it's not dealt with under the Town and Country Planning Act, it's dealt with under the Planning Act 2008. So instead of applying for planning permission, you apply for a development consent order. So a development consent order is like a super consent. So if you apply for planning permission, you would still need to apply to divert rights of way, for example, which yourselves would be interested in. A development consent order, if it's approved, does everything in one go. So it's, if they're approved, it's a huge document. So it allows essentially your planning permission for what it is which is being proposed. Also potential for diversion orders to highways or public rights of way. So it's all covered under that. Potential for compulsory purchase of land as well. So it's a big one-stop shop. The idea being that this is a process which does it all in one go. Which should streamline a consenting process, that being the idea, although it does take a long time to get one of these through. So it's a 6-stage process. So the first stage being the pre-application stage. So this is where a developer will sort of formulate their plans, and they'll do consultation exercises, sort of showing what details they have at the moment, what their proposals are, and they're obliged to do this public consultation. The Planning Infrastructure Act of 2005, which got royal assent last year, changed things a little bit around consultation. It's more now a duty to sort of publicise the scheme, but essentially it's the same thing. This stage of the process can take quite a long time. Potentially, 2 or 3 years, depending on how much consultation a developer wants to do. And this is really where interested parties have the ability to influence the scheme. So it's almost sort of like the application stage, really. So we say, well, here are your plans. We like this, we don't like that, we want you to change this. And the developer should take those into consideration before they actually submit their DCO application. Next stage is the acceptance stage. So this is when a developer's done all their consultation, they've formulated their plans, we're certain this is what we want to do, and they submit that then to the planning inspectorate. And the inspectorate's got 28 days to decide whether an application meets the standards for examination. So that's essentially sort of validating the application. Has it got everything it needs? If it does get rejected, that's a bit of a mess up on the developer's part, really, because you'd expect them to have everything in order. For example, I don't know, are they missing an air quality assessment? Well, the inspectorate would say, well, no, that's not suitable. You need to go away and do this. But you'd expect it all to be there once they've got to that stage. So some of the things which they submit, it's documents. It'd be a huge bundle of evidence and supporting assessments. So with the DCO itself, an explanatory memorandum, sort of a bit of a summary of what it is they're proposing. Other key documents, so that'll be things like the environmental impact assessment. Examination library, so that'll be published. That's all the supporting information they've submitted with their scheme. So that all has to be publicised so people know what exactly it is which is being considered. A developer will also provide lots of precedents. For example, say it's a overhead power line. Well, you approved one of those inspectorate down in Suffolk. So they'll use lots of examples and compare their scheme to that and say, well, that was okay, so this one's okay. But essentially, there's loads of material and information to get through and consider. Stage 3 is pre-examination. So this is, although people can get involved in the pre-app stage, this is where there's an opportunity for people to register with the planning inspectorate to become an interested party by making a relevant representation. So you'll then be kept, whether it's an individual or whether it is a body like the LAF, you will then be kept sort of up to date about the process for the examination. So relevant representation is someone's view on the application, whether that's positive or negative. So once the relevant representation has been made, you become an interested party, you're kept up to date on the process. And the examining authority is appointed at this stage. It's the planning inspectorate will be the examining authority. Interested parties are then invited to attend the preliminary meeting run by the chair of the examining authority. So this preliminary meeting sort of sets the agenda, if you like, for the examination process. There's no statutory timescale for this pre-examination stage, but it usually lasts around 3 months because the inspectorate's got so much to get through. There's a link here for you if these slides can be shared later about making representations, which people might find useful. So the examination stage, this lasts 6 months. It has to last 6 months. That's the deadline. Must be decided within that period of time. And it starts the day after the preliminary meeting. Interested parties who've made relevant representations can provide more detail in writing. If the inspectorate deems it appropriate, you can then have issue-specific hearings on certain issues which may be raised. So that's things which they're not sure about and they want more information. So that would mean attending at the examination in person potentially. So obviously the examining authority considers all the relevant matters, supporting evidence and answers questions. Local authorities are heavily involved during this part of the process. So it's largely a written process. Interested parties will have summarised their concerns and there's the ability to develop concerns more fully in the written reps. Parties can consider exploring common ground with other interested parties, so it's basically teaming up if your views align with other people's, because sometimes that can help with resource implications and carry some more weight. So stage five, we're still going, is the recommendation and decision. So the examining authority must prepare a report and recommendation within 3 months of close of the examination. So they've got 6 months for the examination and then 3 months then to make their recommendation. That then gets sent to the Secretary of State, who's got a further 3 months to then decide the application. Interested parties may be asked to respond to questions from the Secretary of State if they need some more information when it comes to them making their final judgment. Stage 6 is post-decision. So if it gets approved, there's a 6-week challenge period under the judicial review procedure, which can be done through the High Court. Once that period has elapsed, then the development would be confirmed and approved. District and county council authorities and national parks in our instance then have to discharge what's called the requirements. So if you're familiar with a planning application, it's got conditions on it, hasn't it? It's essentially a requirement, in this instance is a condition. So there can be lots and lots of those as well. So the work doesn't stop for a local authority once a DCO has been approved. So what's the role of the local authority? It's to engage in the pre-application process, respond to the EIA scoping request, automatically register as an interested party because you're a host authority, i.e. the project goes through your authority, so you're obviously affected by it. need to respond to an adequacy of consultation request. So that happens at the acceptance stage. The inspectorate sort of basically checks with local authorities, have you been consulted properly? Has the developer contacted everyone they should have done? The authority is also required to produce a local impact report, which is essentially a big committee report, like we do for a planning application. All the impacts are considered, and that's when the authority would sort of come to a balanced view in regards to a scheme. Potentially attend the examination. If there's any issue-specific hearings relevant to the authority, you could be asked to make representations there. And then finally, if it's approved, discharge all the requirements. So yeah, as I mentioned previously, the local impact report, I'll just go into a little bit more detail about that, as I've previously mentioned. So the role of the local access forum, so what can you do to contribute to the process? Respond to the applicant's pre-application consultation. I would, if there's an appetite to do that, I would urge you to do it, because as I said previously, that's when you can really try and influence the scheme. Once it's got to examination, the plans are almost set in stone, really, and the inspectorate are basically going to say, yes, it's okay, or no, it's not. There's no real mechanism for amendments at that point, like there is under the Town and Country Planning Act. It's slightly different. Once it's in, that's their plans and they're going to push forward with it. So pre-app response is probably the time to make your representations. If you make a representation at the acceptance stage, then you become an interested party. You're kept up to date then with the examination process, so I'd probably recommend you do that also. And then you could be asked to attend an issue-specific hearing as well at the examination. So that's the process. Probably quite a bit to take in, but obviously the slides, I'm sure, can be circulated if that is helpful to anybody. So obviously we've got an NSIP potentially in the National Park at the moment. It's at the pre-application stage, and it's the Peak Cluster project. I've taken some slides from their website, really, just for ease of reference, and really because we don't have much more information other than what's in the public domain at the moment. For those who aren't aware of what Peak Cluster is, it's a proposed carbon capture scheme to decarbonise the cement and lime industry in the Peak District region. So we've got one emitter site actually in the park, which is Hope Cement Works, operated by Breedon, and then there's others sort of on the edge of the park. So you've got Cold and Low Cement Works in Staffordshire, Tunstead Cement Works, and there's also a lime plant at the Tunstead Works in Buxton as well. So the region produces around a third of the UK's cement and emits around 3 million tonnes of carbon per year. So the idea is to try and decarbonise that by capturing the CO2. Who's involved in the project? As you can see, yeah, it's various quarrying companies who have cement works and lime plants. So it's like a partnership, and it is supported by the National Wealth Fund as well. I think they've had about £28 million of funding from that, just for sort of like the consenting stage of the project. So it's being backed. So what is carbon capture and storage? Okay, so carbon capture is quite a well-developed technology. It's essentially capturing the carbon, separating out from other gases, compressing that CO2 down, and then transferring it, in this proposal's instance, via a pipeline, which would take it to a further compressor station. I think it's proposed in Ellesmere Port, and then to push that CO2 under the Irish Sea into depleted gas wells, where it should be, they propose to geologically store it and contain the carbon then. So in terms of information we've sort of got on the project, we responded to the developer's scoping opinion request as part of the EIA, Environmental Impact Assessment process. So this is essentially when the applicant says, what are all the matters you want us to consider in our application which could affect the environment? So we've responded to that. I think it was in February or start of March. So this is what they proposed as the route corridor in orange. As you can see, obviously it goes further west as well, but this is the area which affects the national park. It's quite wide at the moment. It will be refined down. It's probably about a 100-metre corridor, with the actual working area for the pipeline being about 30 metres. But at the moment, they call this sort of the Rochdale envelope approach. So it's like, this is sort of the worst case scenario. This is all the areas we could potentially use, but it will be refined down. So obviously, this bit here, if you can see my cursor, that's Hope Cement Works. So there would be an element of pipeline through the park here, and potentially, well, there would be an element as well around Lyme Park. So it may just clip sort of the entrance to Lyme Park, or they may have to come round to the south. Next is the project timeline. So it's been in development since around 2020. We as a park have had some early engagement with Peak Cluster and influenced the route corridors. Early proposals showed an additional pipeline route, if I can go back. Okay, doesn't really show on there, but it crossed the southwest peak. So we managed to influence them, say that wasn't a good idea, do one which goes round the outside. So while we've influenced the scheme, we haven't said we're supporting it. We've just said, if this was going to happen, this would be the least worst option. Next. So they did their first round of consultation at the start of this year, and then the second round of consultation is due probably around sort of September, October this year. That's when we're hoping there'll be some more detail in regards to the scheme, particularly around the infrastructure at the emitter sites. We don't know what any of that's going to be at the moment. So that'll be quite a key time for us to start feeding back again in the pre-application stage, and for yourselves or anyone else who is interested. They're aiming to submit the DCO application towards the end of next year, and then obviously the examination period starts, as I've previously discussed. The aim is that it will be consented in 2029 and operational in 2032, provided all the consents are issued and the requirements are discharged. And that's a brief summary, so if there's any questions, I'll try to answer them.
Thank you very much, Tom. It's useful, I think, hopefully, and I guess most of the questions are going to be actually on Peak Cluster, which I think we appreciate you haven't got all the answers to. Louise got a hand up first, and then Charlotte as well. Anybody else, please?
Thanks, Nick, and thanks, Tom. It's a really useful kind of insight into that process. So thank you very much. Had two questions. One's on the process and the other is on the cluster. So on the process, is there an easy way for someone who's not part of a local authority to know when these pre-applications are coming in? Because obviously you will know, or the park will know, because you're presumably told, but other kind of interested parties wouldn't. And how, is there a central place where they are notified?
Yeah, so basically the developer is sort of responsible for that consultation process under this Planning Act 2008 application. So if you go onto their website, I think it's just peakcluster.com, if you just search Peak Cluster on Google, it will come up. And if you just respond to them, send them an email saying I'd like to be kept informed, they'll add you to that mailing list, and then when there's another round of consultation, you'll get an email saying, we're consulting on this, what are your views?
I guess I was thinking more broadly, because previously we've had potential projects, say, around reservoir expansion as well, and I tend to find out about these things because they sort of come in on the ether from someone says something.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking, is there like on the DEFRA website or some website where I can say, oh, some pre-applications have come in for this water project or this renewable energy project or this that you might be interested because it affects the Peak District?
Not really, unfortunately. So you see with the reservoir schemes, that never got to this stage. No. It was just sort of initial discussion around it, whereas this is a bit more advanced and they are proposing to do it. So no, sorry, there isn't a central hub, I'm afraid.
So my Hope Cluster question, thank you. My Hope Cluster question was, how does the proposal fit in with the fact that the Hope site is due for
decommissioning?
Thank you, yes.
Yeah. I think they're connected because they're trying to decarbonise the industry, but they're sort of not connected as well. There's an end date of 2042 at Hope Cement Works, and that's what I understand Breedon to be working to. That's the end date on the planning permission.
Charlotte was next.
Yeah, just, I don't know if you know, around the technology and, you know, are there other schemes worldwide that are doing this, that so that, you know, it's sort of, is it experimental or is it something that is known and it's like putting in a sewer or whatever, you know, we know what we're doing, it's fine.
So there is carbon capture technology. Carbon capture's been around for a while, but one good example is it's a plant in Norway called Brevik, which is operated by Heidelberg Materials. I think they were operational with their carbon capture last year. I don't think they're using a pipeline to transport the CO2. It's been sort of put into containers and transported by ship and then being put into disused oil wells. So the technology is operating. In terms of the pipeline, it's not new technology. You know, there's high pressure gas pipelines all over the country. So in theory, it should work.
I might be able to add a bit more. I did a bit of digging. There are 18 of 43 carbon capture schemes in the world. 18, as I understand it, currently working. The rest are in development in somehow. One, wasn't aware of the Norway one, if that's cement. One in America, I think, is attached to. The rest are attached to. Most of them are attached to power stations. There is one to do with cement in America, which is, I think, for Terra. I think that's the one I wrote down. I'm guessing before it comes to Susan's question, as a LAF, we want to be an interested party in this. Has anybody got any objections to that? Presumably not. Okay, so I'll look at what we need to do there. What stage are we at?
We're pre-app at the moment.
So we need to get moving rapidly then, basically?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll invite any comments to come through to me and Sue, or to the LAF email address via anyone from anyone who's interested. I think personally have concerns about how mature the technology is. You know, one other or possibly two other places in the world that are doing this with cement production. It's not exactly mature, in my view. Some questions I think we ought to think about is why it's being stored underground and not reused. It seems that the CO2 that's produced can be reused and possibly even reused in the cement production itself, or sold into food and drinks industries, possibly others. I'm not sure about that. That's as far as I've gone overnight, unfortunately. So yeah, I think it's important for us to get involved. Susan, you had a question. Oh, sorry, my apologies. I got the wrong hand.
That's okay. I'm Dave. Sorry, I've not got a thing to say my name. I work for Derbyshire Wildlife Trust. Just for people's information, really. We responded to the consultation, looking at the potential damage to local wildlife sites, and there were 17 potential statutory and non-statutory designated wildlife sites that were going to be impacted by the initial proposal. So we responded with our concerns about that, just for people's information on how we responded as an organisation. Ben, please.
I've got a very quick question, and forgive my naivety. I did just go on ChatGPT to ask it, but I'll ask you. Where does Planning Gain 106 fit in? You know, thinking as to down the line, how could the Peak Park or anybody around benefit from such a development, and can we start thinking towards schemes that might?
Yeah, it's the same kind of process. So if the impacts needed to be offset somehow, they'd be secured through legal agreements through the DCO process. But there's also sort of a separate process to that called the Community Benefits Scheme. So if it got approved, then the developer is sort of obliged to provide community benefits, usually by way of a monetary contribution. And these benefits, they don't have to be directly related to the development. Like for 106 stuff, it has to be directly related. Say, for example, it was a quarry and there's going to be lots of vehicle movements. Well, you could spend the money on road improvements, couldn't you? But these community benefits, not quite like that. So it can be any schemes in the local community, sort of the area of the DCO project, which could benefit from some funding.
Craig.
I'm Craig from the National Trust. It was just a flag. I mean, I'm personally not directly involved, but there's a team looking at this from a National Trust perspective, particularly around Lime Park, which might be obvious, really. It's an interesting scheme. On a personal note, I'm not really sure if it's a good thing or not. I mean, but I think from a National Trust perspective, I think we'll be particularly interested in what impact it would have on heritage, nature, access provision, that sort of thing. But I guess it's also just building on what's just been said. It's what benefits might come out of this project in terms of improvements to access, improvements to nature, because clearly these projects in some respects will have a temporary damage to the landscape, but is there a bigger gain from a project to improve access and heritage and nature within that sort of working area and beyond? So but yeah, I mean, personally, I'm not sort of speaking on behalf of the National Trust. I'm just sort of flagging that I'm actually a bit confused about the project. I'm not sure if it's a good thing or not, because, you know, being someone who's bought a new house recently, you know, there's a lot of cement and gone into that house, and I would imagine most of us in this room benefit from cement production in some way. So we must be live to the fact that it's needed for a whole range of different benefits to society, and in carbon is having a huge impact on global climate as well. So I'm not saying I personally support the scheme. I'm just not clear on it, and I sense, and I could be wrong about this, but I sense there will be other people in this room feel similar as well. Have a similar level of confusion over what are the benefits, what are the the pros and cons, and yeah, I think it'd be interesting to know a little bit more about it, actually.
Okay. And actually, could I just follow, because I think something you picked up on at the beginning of that is something that we had the same with the reservoir proposal, which is there are almost two things to think about from the perspective of the LAF. One is, what's our view on the impact of this and whether it goes ahead in terms of its impact on the things that we're interested in. But the other is, if it's going to go ahead, what benefits can we get from it? What would we want to see them do? What would we want that 106 or community benefit to be spent on that we could really see the benefits from? And that's a real tension, because obviously on the one side you may be saying, well, we don't want it, but on the other side you'd be thinking, well, we do want it because there could be some real benefits from it. And those are never easy conversations, but I think that's a conversation that we might need to have if we decide to become an interested party.
If I may, Chair. Yeah. And I think that's the key thing to consider. It's a bit odd, this sort of process, isn't it? But you can still object to something, but say, well, if it is going to happen, we'd like to see this, this and this to minimise it, and these are the benefits we'd like. So I think do keep that in mind.
We've got Jeff, and if we've got time, if we come to Tom at the back, Tim Meaden. Tom's here.
Yeah, just a quick comment. I mean, I don't know if this will work or not. I hope it does, but I remember from my time actually on the authority, whenever we talked about kind of climate change and global warming and all the rest of it, there are all sorts of things that we decided that we could do, but we could never do anything about Hope Cement Works, which was the biggest kind of contributor in terms of CO2 in the whole of the national park and beyond. So from that point of view, I think it's a kind of very welcome thing that you're actually doing something about the kind of unmentionable that was always there in terms of what we could do about these things. So from that experience, I kind of welcome it, really. But yeah, I agree with the comment that whether you like it or not, if it goes ahead, then we then see what we can gain for the things that we're interested in.
Okay. Thanks. Yeah, Phil.
Sorry, Tom, you said that the scheme will have the normal kind of planning 106 type agreements plus a community benefit thing, will it also have BNG requirements as well, which given the size of development could be significant? Is that right? Can you...
Yeah, that's correct. All of that is correct, Phil.
So there are potential enhancements. I'm just struck by what Craig said about cement. You know, I can't avoid using cement in my life either. I can avoid flying if I can choose that, but actually cement is 3 times the contribution of all global aviation emissions. So it is a really significant emitter that we can't really avoid. And I think this is an interesting scheme, I'll say that.
Right. Yeah, I think we need to move on, Craig, sorry. Yeah, we're running behind, typically. If we can grab a break, 5 minutes, coffee in the other room, whatever, and be back in here, well, before 1:45, we get back on track, that'd be great. Thank you. of the meeting. Access for all, presentation with Sue, who assures me it's going to be quick, but
Yeah.
don't skimp on information.
Don't skimp, right, okay. I've not got lots of words on the slides, so I've got a copy here, so I will go through fast. Okay, so just a slide for what it's all about, Accessible Peak District. Some of the things that we're aiming to do, so more accessible, people of all ages, abilities, socio-economic backgrounds, places, facilities, equipment and information to build confidence and the benefits of spending time in nature to all. So, Access for All funding. You've been having quite regular updates from me in June every year and at other meetings as well. But when we meet in June, we run through what we've delivered in the previous year. In year 4, we received just short of £256,000. That was payable in 2 instalments. And this year, we have been advised that we've got the same amount. And following on from Phil's update at the beginning of the meeting, indicative for the following 2 years as well. So that is fabulous news. So the areas of spend in 25-26. And you've heard me talk before about more places, more miles, more mobility. We delivered in 25-26 surfacing gates, viewing areas, route information in order to create and enhance the routes we need. We looked at developing facilities and improving online information, and we did that last year through a changing place, outdoor classroom, resting places and information guides. And the more mobility, in order to increase the number of people participating, was fast charging e-bikes, inclusive cycles and volunteering equipment, and some of that in connection with the new cycle hire at Millersdale, which is due to open shortly. So I've included some pictures here, and what we have on the left-hand side is at Tidesloedale, where we've extended the accessible route northwards as well, and put some better gates in. Now, we've not surfaced up the dale, but we've made the gates wider, so those with all-terrain prams and other buggies will be able to link in from Tideswell and Lytton from the pavements there, and then head down Tidesloedale through the route there. Middle top is up at Lady Bower Reservoir, where we're taking people to the top of the dam. So Miles Without Styles route takes people to the bottom of the dam and round to the eastern side. Now we're taking people up to the western side. The ramp with railing that you can see there. So that was an existing ramp which we've surfaced and provided a railing on. And that's at Lady Bower, Colksbury, widening the access there, so providing a new access from the disabled parking area, and that's one of our Miles Without Styles. And this is at Minninglow Car Park, where we've widened the access and safeguarded people from. We've provided a route through the car park and safeguarded that route, just made it easier to follow. More places, for those of us joining us at Brunt's Barn, this is a pond dipping platform. Sadly it might not be sunny this afternoon, but it will still look beautiful. Torside car park, this is the overspill car parking area where we've put in seats for viewpoints, and there's lots more plans to do more in that area as well. A viewing area up at Lady Bower, so I mentioned about access to the top. So providing for disabled parking, we've taken a section of fencing back and allowed everyone, rather than go down the steps and take the photo, you can stand at the top. Level access and take the photo. Changing place, that's at Trenterbank Visitor Centre at Macclesfield Forest, and we've been doing some works there The middle bottom photo is also at Macclesfield Forest, so we're putting in a new Miles Without Styles route there, and we opened up the viewing platform to see the heronry, and we'll be looking at some more details. Seats, I think there was probably about 22 seats, resting places that we put in across the national park, and it's just showing here that actually it's where you place the seats really allows people to just take the time to slow down and connect with nature. I would say a lot more, but I'm doing a whistle-stop tour for you all. And really one way to if you've not seen this before, have a look at the anniversary edition of Countryfile, which went out on the 19th of April, 2 days after, where the segment, so it's talking about volunteering and all the engagement work that's going on, and all the work going on across the national park, plenty to see and enjoy. But we also did a section at Parsley Hay. So that's Charlotte there on her new e-bike, first time on an e-bike. We had someone first time on a tramper and someone first time on a trike, and they were all on the trail at the same time. Fortunately, there weren't many other users on the trail at that time. But everyone came back just buzzing with energy and thinking about going again. And the phone just hasn't stopped ringing at Parsley Hay. Because this was our intention. We wanted people to see about the changing place there. We wanted people to see inside the changing place, because it's a really beautiful building. But if you don't know about changing places, you don't know quite why it's there and what's inside it. So Gillian Scotford's talking through that, and everyone can see the support that the Cycle Hard team gives, and how enjoyable it is along the trail. And so this is what we're looking at with More Mobility. So we've got different inclusive bikes. The one on the right-hand side is where we're doing some partnership events with Experience Community. So they're running from Derwent Cycle Hire, training people to use the mountain trike, and then they can come back and hire at other times. So it's training them to use the mountain trike, but also getting used to the routes in the area, and then they come back and hire. And middle top, that's some e-bikes that we've provided for volunteer rangers, because it just makes their role a bit easier, and it means that people can continue to play a very active part in volunteering, particularly if they've got an e-bike. Oh, wait a minute, and I've just got one final slide there very quickly. So we did some work on the Monsell Trail. Similar to the interpretation panels, you'll see one of them on the Countryfile episode that I mentioned. So we've got them on the Tissington and High Peak trails. We did a similar sort of design for the Monsell Trail. We're not putting the boards on site yet, so that will be an online resource. And the reason we're not putting them on site yet, you will hear in the next agenda item, where we'll be telling you what happens next. We've done some accessible Bakewell work, so this is similar to the accessible Castleton work, but we decided to go a bit bigger. So first accessible village, now we're looking at our accessible town. And over there is interactive mapping, and sadly I haven't got time to demonstrate to you, but it works, about the interactive mapping for the Miles Without Styles routes. So if you're visiting an area, say coming to Overhaddon and thinking, where's an accessible route suitable for me, you'll be able to search to see where they are close to the Overhaddon area and find out that Cogsbury is pretty perfect, and where we've been spending, or where the foundation have been helping support us by carrying out some maintenance carried out by Peak Park Conservation volunteers, which you'll meet, who you will meet this afternoon. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Sue. Has anybody got any questions for Sue on that before we move on? Craig.
it's a bit of a random one, but I just want to say I really like the design of your logos, your graphics, this magazine. It just all feels quite slick, the font and such things. So it looks really good. It all seems to work together, So yeah, sorry, it's nice just to say nice things, isn't it, really? So, and I'm just sitting there and I'm thinking, yeah, it all looks really nice. So,
sure, the design department would be delighted with that feedback for you.
Yeah, is it the in-house team that's doing this work, or externals, or mix of both?
Yeah, it's the in-house team who have led on the welcome guide, and I think they've done an excellent job. So we've got the tube map centrefold, and then we've got lots about the anniversary, but also great to see about access for all, and we will pass on Ben's previous earlier comment, but thank you very much for that positive comment about their work. Thank you.
Question from Ian.
I just want to offer some congratulations as well. I think Craig and I come from the same part of the country. So some decades ago, 3 decades ago, I had the opportunity, I was with a firm of multinational accountants, and I had the opportunity to go to any major industrial area because these big accountants didn't have firms in Bakewell and things, and I picked Sheffield. And people were horrified. Why would you want to go to Sheffield? And I said, have you ever been to the Peak District National Park? That was the reason that my wife and I moved, because I had horses and I loved to walk there. Now I can't walk. I've got one of the most capable all-terrain buggies in the world, made in Lincolnshire. I go all over the country, this includes Scotland and Wales to a degree, using my all-terrain buggy, and I know that Sue has an idea how capable it is. I get to the top of Win Hill and things like that, wherever. Right. I do not know anywhere else in the country, and I don't know it all well, where I can go on my all-terrain buggy and travel so many miles. I've got friends in Dorset and Devon. I go there. I'm really, really restricted. The Lake District is beautiful, but styles and etc. and parking. So I think Phil, Sue and everybody involved should really take solace in the fact that this project, with the local active forum, etc., and the whole of the Peak Park, really has, in my mind, been a real success.
Thank you, Ian. Anything else now for Sue before we move on to active travel updates? No? Okay, then, Sue. Thank you. And Tim as well for this one.
Hi, thanks everybody. I think I know everyone around the room, but just in case, my name's Tim Nicholson, Transport Policy Planner for the Peak District National Park Authority, and myself and Sue have been working on active travel over the last 2 years together, principally based on the funding that we've received from Active Travel England. So just give you a little bit of an update, a little bit of background. So we produced our Peak District Walking, Wheeling, Cycling and Horse Riding Infrastructure Plan. It runs from 2025 to 2030. We've been referring to it as the Active Travel Plan because it's a little easier to say. It's funded by Active Travel England. We developed it over 15 months from April of 2024 through to June of last year. And we had widespread engagement with the Local Access Forum, with highway authorities and with landowners in 2024. We ran a number of workshops, 2 with highway authorities, 1 with landowners, and the people that we missed as part of those workshops, we picked them off one at a time by individual meetings. And we had a representative from the Local Access Forum at all of the workshops. And it was really, really good to have that feedback from them.
We ran the public consultation in the winter of 2025, which Sue led on. We put some interactive maps out there, and we got people to give us an idea of places they'd like to go, places where they'd like to see improvements made. And that all fed into our plan. We also produced an economic business case during the spring and summer of last year. We worked with Phil Jones Associates and the Yorkshire Dales National Park Authority to do a joint project on that, and that's been really useful to us. It's given us some idea of the benefits of delivering this plan and the benefits of delivering individual parts of that plan. And we also did some early feasibility work during the spring and summer of last year. What we developed was a strategic high-level network. The map there shows what that is. It's a mix of existing routes, so all of the trail networks on there. Some of the Sustrans routes are on there as well. But there are also some aspirational routes, things that we'd like to deliver if we get the opportunity to do so. And it extends beyond the national park boundary. We've not gone as far off into the wilds of Greater Manchester as we might like to do, because it's beyond our remit to be able to deliver, but we did work very closely with highway authorities to say, well, if we could get to here, what would you do? And this has enabled us to identify priority schemes for future development. So, March of this year, Active Travel England funding was announced for national parks again. To be fair, we kind of got a bit of an inkling that this was going to happen at the beginning of the year and was sworn to secrecy. But we've received another £200,000, as have all of the other English national parks, and we've been given 18 months of a delivery phase. And the main outcome that Active Travel England are looking for from us is to bring a scheme to being delivery ready, so we actually develop it and then we can bid for funding to actually deliver something. With this funding, we are doing some scheme planning and design. We're intending to develop the existing plan and network. Doing some data and evidence gathering. I've been out 4 weekend days so far this year. I've got another 8 lined up, where I will go out and talk to trail users, active travel users, also do some counts as well, just to try and get an idea of what's happening on the network. And we also want to engage with a wide number of stakeholders, so we will rerun some workshops. We will be working with the subgroup of the Local Access Forum again. So it's about making sure that we take people with us. The scheme planning and design, we're intending to build on our previous feasibility work, so we're looking at Monsell Trail extensions both westward and eastward along the existing track bed. Some of you will have been with us on Monday to look at the Sheffield link from Ringinglow onwards towards Longshore. We think there are things that we can do to improve access to the Monsell Trail at Bakewell, including particularly the ramp at the end of Coombs Road. We want to take a quiet lanes approach in some cases where we can't deliver things where it's a definite off-road route, but there may be opportunities for quiet lanes, and particularly we think that's possible between Tissenden and Manifold Trails, but that will mean working with 2 highway authorities to try and make this happen, and we'll have to make sure that they're happy with us to do that. And we're going to look at other opportunities as they arise. So shortly after this, I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about our emerging local plan, but it's worth mentioning at this point that safeguards 2 known routes for possible future development. One of those is the former railway between Bakewell and Roseley, and one of them is the former railway between Buxton and the Goyt Valley. And so we're basically safeguarding against the possibility of delivering schemes in the future, active travel schemes. And as already mentioned, we believe this will be a partnership approach, working with highway authorities and others to make the best use of the resources that are available to us. So just finally, we see the Peak District Local Access Forum of having an important role to play with this. So we will continue to provide regular updates. I think you've probably all got used to seeing me on a regular basis, almost every meeting I turn up now, I think. We will convene further meetings of the Peak District Local Access Forum subgroup, because we want them to guide and advise on schemes as they are developed. And we will invite the Peak District Local Access Forum chair or vice chair to attend any of the consultation events that we run. Thank you. Are there any questions?
Anybody? Yeah, sure. Sue just has got something to add, and then
Yeah, just to add to that, we are very pleased to move to a phase 2 of funding for national parks. So it's all 10 English national parks as well, similar to what we did in phase 1. You will have seen the report that National Parks England published, and I've provided a link on that, which talks about the value of active travel in rural areas and the role that the national park can play in working with partners and helping deliver on active travel. I'll just very quickly say that yes, we did go out and have a look at the Sheffield link when we did our celebratory anniversary event. We will be having more detailed site meetings and going through the schemes, but sadly I can't promise beer on every occasion.
did you have a question, Susan, or was it about...
You had a question earlier on about the Monsell Trail.
It was about, right, I wondered if it was that you were going to raise, yeah. So the, if not everybody's aware, Jazz raised it earlier about the DCC motion to try and bring back the railway on the Monsell Trail. So it'd be useful if we've got, have you got any specific questions that you wanted to raise, Jez, or is it just an update generally from the Peak Park?
I just wanted to know if anybody knew what was happening, because I heard it. I didn't know about a motion of DCC, but it doesn't strike me as the best thing to happen. In fact, very concerning, to be honest, from my point of view. So I just wonder whether anybody else knew. Is it serious? Is it just a whim? Because there seem to be some people lobbying to open that railway on the Monsell Trail, or parts of it anyway.
Okay. Yeah, please do.
Okay, thank you. So, an organisation called MEMRAP, which is the Manchester and East Midlands Rail Action Partnership, and they have an offshoot, a company called the Peaks and Dales Railway, and they've been working on trying to make the case for reopening probably about 11 years now. I think it must have been about 2015 that I first met with them. So they believe that the railway is a viable opportunity for them. They see it as being a mainline railway, part of the main network. We have met with them a number of times. Up until now, both the Sells and Derbyshire County Council have taken the line that we value the trail as a trail. And from a Peak District National Park Authority's perspective, I think we continue to do that. We currently safeguard the trail for potential future rail use, which is something from our planning policy background that goes back many years and was reiterated in 2011 in our core strategy. As part of our local plan review, as we've been going through consultations over the last 2-3 years, we've been making a shift towards safeguarding the Monsell Trail as a trail, in the same way that we do the Tissington, the Manifold and the High Peak trails. And that will go within our final plan out to consultation in the summer of this year. I am aware that one of the Derbyshire County Council councillors moved a motion to support reinstatement of the railway last week, and that was carried. As far as the authority is concerned, our position hasn't changed. We have a role as a planning body, so the planning policies kind of set out our current position and where I think we will be after examination. In all of our policies, we've always said that even if a railway did come forward, that we would wish to see the continuation of the Monsell Trail either in its current route or by a realignment, and that replacement trail would need to be equally as good or better. And so we still maintain that approach, and that would apply to any of the trails, if I'm honest. And as an organisation, we, alongside the Derbyshire County Council, have been pushing for a number of years to try and deliver the White Peak Loop, and that, the Monsell Trail is integral in that, and that's basically connecting Matlock and Buxton with the Monsell and High Peak trails. I don't know if that gives you the information on where we are. If there's anything else you'd like to ask me.
Best isn't it, to be honest? Your side's fine. The motion could come along that's so major for little consideration. It's not good.
Sue's just got something she wants to add.
Yeah, I just want to add that in connection with the active travel work that we've reported in the update, where we've identified looking at schemes to extend the Monsell Trail. We're still progressing with that and carrying out, going through various feasibility stages.
Susan?
Thank you. As a member of Derbyshire County Council, I spoke against the motion, incredibly disappointed that it was brought forward after all the work that's been done over the years with our various trails. Ian spoke so passionately about the access that he has, easier access. I was just absolutely so disappointed. The health benefits, tourism, leisure, economic benefits of this. The engineering problems of reinstating the tunnels, the bridges, the sheer cost of it. I'm sure this argument will go on and on, but I would hope that the Local Access Forum and the Peak Park would continue to support the Monsell Trail and the extension to the White Peak Loop. Okay.
Yeah.
One other bit of information is that this group that Tim mentioned, the Peaks and Dales Railway, have submitted to the Department for Transport their proposal for a feasibility assessment. So we are waiting now for Department for Transport to come back with a view of how feasible it is. And I think that's going to be an important piece. And I'm certainly just waiting to see what that says, because I guess if the Department for Transport look at all of that and say this really isn't feasible, then I think it doesn't really have legs. If they come back and say that it is, then I think we're in a different area, and we also need to see what happens with other kind of things politically. But let's wait until we get that view of Department for Transport.
Okay. Thank you, Phil. Have you got a question about the active travel presentation, Martin, or is it about the MCA?
Just a comment I was going to make.
Okay, sure.
Tim, Sue, thanks very much for the active travel. I live in Wirksworth and I use the trails. I'm a lifelong cyclist as well as walker. Just go back to the presentation from last time from Alan Simpson, was it, from the Mayor's thing. I mean, I thought it was inspirational, the Mayor's plan, the sort of the idea of getting a modal shift away from cars and getting towards active travel. It's something absolutely one of the best presentations I've seen. The book came out by John Campner, looking he's went to visit 10 countries, called A Braver New World, and looking what we can learn from it. With that, I've just come back yesterday from 3 weeks cycling around the Netherlands, where I cycled from Rotterdam down to Maastricht and into Belgium. I have to say we are decades behind Europe. Decades. And one of the things is it's not just the cycling, it is mobility. It's people, a number of people I saw on mobility vehicles, but cycling. You can cycle anywhere in Netherlands and get to wherever you want. We didn't bother planning, you just turn up. Belgium is the same. I've been to Berlin, it is the same. We've just had a report saying that the healthy life expectancy is dropped by 2 years. We're the only OECD country for that to happen. We've got one of the worst rates of obesity, and we have the worst inequality. Cycling, active travel can just put so much to addressing those things. It really is something we could do. So positive, thank you for all you do, but wow, we have got so much more to do as a country.
Okay, thank you, Martin. Sorry, Tim.
Sorry, thank you. Just to go back a little bit on use of the trail. I was actually out on Saturday doing surveys, and I positioned myself near Hassop Station. And just to give you an idea of the levels of use on Saturday, which was nice sunny day, 350 odd people doing the park run in both directions, who unfortunately don't get picked up by our counter because it's the wrong side of the station. There was a huge running event called the Maverick, which was people coming through all day. 60 odd Morris dancers that had been performing in some event at the station at Tassop, all going down into Bakewell for the day. And then just a wide variety of diversity of people of all races, all abilities, all ages, and the number of people that came up to me and said, "This is really great, I enjoy this place." So, yeah, it's just to give you an idea of how well thought of it is, I think. So thank you.
Okay, right, excellent. We've had notification that the MCA EP Stakeholder Reference Group is planning a meeting towards the end of June and is inviting previous previous members of their mailing list to attend. That's if anybody from here would like to attend, we need to reply by, well, they need to reply by the 12th of June. Would anybody like to attend? Dad Laugh would like to attend as well, so I feel like the peak.
When is it, sorry?
It's not been scheduled yet, according to the information that I've got here. So it seems like towards the end of June is quite a broad, obviously. Okay. Okay, so we will find someone to represent the Peak Park Laugh in that. Excellent. Okay, so moving on then to Tim again, who'll chat about the local plan.
Sorry, Chair.
Okay.
We're supposed to agree the response to the consultation as well. Is that with
Sorry.
Yeah.
which I'm sure it will.
Yes, please. Linked into future representation on the stakeholder group. If you could, if you wouldn't mind, as per the recommendation, agreeing the LAF response to the MCA consultation, and with thanks to Charlotte for submitting.
Yeah. Charlotte. Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Thank you very much. Sorry.
Sorry. No.
Okay.
Okay, thanks everybody. Just want to give you hopefully a very brief update on the Peak District Local Plan Review. The Peak District Local Access Forum submitted responses to our preferred approaches consultation. So it's largely to give you an idea of how we've dealt with things, but a slightly wider update as well. So just to give you an idea, we have our current local plan consists of the Peak District Core Strategy from 2011 and the Peak District Development Management Policies from 2019. So they're the two main planning documents, but we also have various supplementary planning documents, all of which are shown on the screen there. And neighbourhood plans also form part of this. So in terms of the review, it's been a 5-6 year process, preparing topic papers initially, then doing some informal consultation, and since then we've had two formal public consultations on the Regulation 18. So we did one in the autumn and winter of 2024, which was an issues and options consultation. And then over last winter, we did the preferred approaches. And the intention is that we will then prepare our final plan for public consultation. That's currently ongoing, but it's really a winter-spring timescale for that. So the Local Access Forum responded to 5 policies that I deal with. I've got to be honest, there was the response covered slightly more than that, but I thought I'd drill down on the stuff that I've actually commented on or responded to. So you commented on Policy Direction 7, which is recreation hubs, Policy Direction 11, temporary campsites, 22, which is reducing the general need to travel and encouraging sustainable transport, Policy 62, routes for walking, cycling and horse riding in waterways, and Policy 63, development affecting the public right of way. So I'll go through those. So the first of these was on recreation hubs, and I think you were generally welcoming of the direction, but expressed concerns about reference to them reducing or mitigating visitor pressure. And that's a valid point. But I just wanted to add a little bit of context to that. So in some cases that might be about improving access from a wider area. So it's about trying to manage the visitor pressure, but particularly car-borne pressure. So the things that we might do might involve improvements to active travel. It would all depend on the site in particular. So on that particular occasion, I've not made any change to the policy direction, but I would say that based on a lot of the information that we got from members, we did an awful lot of changes to it generally. Second one was on temporary campsites. We'd spoken about introducing an Article 4 direction, and I think you're a bit concerned about that. So we are not necessarily, we don't know where we are with this. We still need to do further research and consultation, but it's not considered that this will form part of the plan as a policy. So we've kind of acknowledged within the plan that we need to find out more before we bring an Article 4 direction in to limit the current permitted development rights. 22, reducing the general need to travel and encouraging sustainable transport. You made this particularly important comment that within that policy we referred to walking and cycling, but we didn't refer to wheeling, and that was a fairly easy one for us to change. And it was an oversight that as the policies have developed, we're still using the terminology from 5 years ago. So we've picked that up. The policy's been amended to reflect that. And you raised a similar concern with the routes for walking, cycling, horse riding. Basically, we haven't got wheeling in there, but you did offer support generally. But you'd also asked about access to green and blue infrastructure. It's not covered specifically within that policy, but we do pick it up elsewhere. So your concerns are noted, but please be confident that we've not made a change to this particular policy for that, but it is elsewhere within the plan. And development affecting the public right of way, it was a similar sort of concern. You mentioned the access to green and blue infrastructure again. You also referred to wheeling. So I think we've pretty much covered making the changes that you'd asked for within that. Obviously, what we do as part of this, when we produce the final plan, we will do a consultation report. So again, it gives you the opportunity to check to see what our response has been. And what we do is we summarise your comment, we respond to your comment, and we make a note of whether it's changed the policy or not. So just to go through the next steps, we are preparing the final plan at the minute. There will be an authority meeting to approve public consultation in July. We will do a final round of public consultation in August and September. What we don't do, generally speaking, is go through the approach that we have done over the last two consultations, so comments will not necessarily lead to changes to that final plan. There may be things that we choose to pick up, but we're not obliged to. What we tend to do is submit everything through to the examiner, including every comment that people make, and they will take a decision on whether the comments are something that they think we need to make amendments as a result. But any amendments we do make will be in the autumn of 2026. We have a deadline for submission of the plan to the Planning Inspectorate of December, which we are intending to meet, and then after that there will be a formal examination, which will be a public examination, and people who've made representations have the opportunity to come and talk to us about, through the examiner, about things that they think are wrong with the plan or right with the plan. So that's pretty much where we are with it. Again, any questions I'm happy to take. Sorry, it's a bit of a run through, and I appreciate that the text is not ideal for being able to see, particularly at the back.
I'm afraid we probably haven't really got time for questions, but if there's any feedback for Tim on, and we can pass that on and we can pick it up another time. Looks like everything's good anyway. Annual report, Sue, are we going to...
I'm not saying anything about this in view of the time, other than rise to please note the contents of the summary of the annual report. Thank you.
Has anybody got any member reports they'd like to submit? I think that would be the same case. It would be minute them rather than...
Can I just do very quick?
If you can tie it in, then so we've got time for AOB, because I know there's something we want to pick up. Okay, Ben, thank you. Yeah.
Useful for you to know about Riverwalks. I don't know if anybody else has any intel on the National Riverwalk scheme, but the other day I attended the launch of the Mersey Valley Way with Baroness Hayman and the DEFRA team. So I think I've probably gone on at length about how I've banged on to try and get DEFRA to see these as national river trails rather than walks. So they're multi-user. But I was very pleased to go to the launch of the day. We launched a paddle trail alongside at the same time, just to make the point to DEFRA, and it was quite nice that a little bit of money fell our way as well to do some extra signage. So I think that point landed with DEFRA. The trail, Mersey Valley Way, was already existing in the same way that the Derwent Valley Way is existing. So the plan with the Riverwalk, so you're aware, that was the first pilot. This test it cost about £1 million. They did a load of signage updates, a little bit of resurfacing. It's now going to go out to a public competition. So at some point between summer and autumn, there will be a public competition for bids to go for the next round of Riverwalks. There'll be another 3 or 4 chosen locations. It could be anywhere. Obviously, it needs to be alongside a river. And just so you're aware, there's a group, and I know, Sue, you attended the meeting, I don't know if anybody else did. There is a group actively pushing really hard for the Derwent Heritage Way and a River Derwent to be one of the next river walks. It needs to be multi-user, it needs to demonstrate that it can improve access to nature, it needs to have community involvement. I think there was 4 things, I can't remember. I've sent you an email, Sue, with the latest update, and there's an update meeting in a couple of weeks. So maybe we'll know more at the next LAF meeting, and we'll know more if we've put an application in for the Derwent to become one of the national river walks. So I just thought it'd be useful just to update the group on that, and there'll be more in autumn.
Super. Thank you, Ben. Okay. So just close the meeting. We've just got a few minutes. Pick up on any other business. Ben, we spoke earlier.
Sorry, it's me again. Sorry, everybody.
Yeah, no problem.
Again, I'm going to throw to Tim at the back shortly, because I know Tim's come special later just to say a few words. But you'll all have been aware of the really tragic drownings over the last 10 days or so. It's all been in the news and media. Absolutely awful. Quite distressing to see a lot of young boys drowning in in waters all over the country. Really, really sad. And what has been interesting is to see that there's been a lot of good consistency around messaging from different organisations, RLSS, RNLI, Fire and Rescue Services, all very consistent with Float to Live. Not saying don't go in the water, but saying this is how you keep yourself safe, be aware that the water is dangerous. And it's been really interesting to see that and how that's been represented in the media. You know, I'm here not on behalf of Paddler UK, but on behalf of water users, and I know over the last week or so there's been a lot of pushback from the water user community, particularly wild swimmers, to the post that the Peak District National Park put out on Facebook. There was a lot of feedback, and it would be remiss of me not to raise it at the meeting. It was a poor post that the authority put on Facebook, really poor. It told people that they should never enter the water unless they're part of a supervised group, and it conflated wild swimming with safety, littering, issues with private ownership and impact on wildlife. At no point would the park ever say that to climbers or ramblers or horse riders. It would never conflate any of those users with littering or such like, and to single out wild swimmers as a result of the drownings to make that point was poor. But to the credit of the authority, within 24 hours it was taken down, it was corrected, and the line that the authority took was more in line with the national advice around Float to Live, around making sure the water is safe to go in, etc., etc. So credit to the authority. What I'd like to propose through the LAF is, as a result of this, you know, it clearly exposed maybe a naivety or a reactive the position might be wrong from the authority around how people should use water in the Peak District. And what I'd like to propose is that maybe I facilitate a meeting, or we set a meeting up with local water users like Tim, like other swimming or swimming groups, the Royal Lifesaving Society, other people in this space, so that the authority are clear and have a clear policy that is in line with national, you know, advice and guidance, so that should this arise again, that the park authority is really clear on how it is messaging to water users, and we're not getting a message that says do not enter the water, you are littering, etc. So credit to the authority for correcting, but I think it does expose a weakness in maybe or a confusion policy from the authority around how people should use water in the national park. I know it's a sensitive issue. It's a really difficult issue. We have to get it right because people's lives are at risk, but it also has to be consistent with what the national mood is and the national advice is. So I don't know if, because Tim's come, would it be all right? Just, have we got time? I'll leave it to you, Chair, but I'll leave it there.
I think we would definitely need to look at the role of the LAF in these sorts of communications, or how we can support the Peak Park as well. I think personally welcome a meeting with user groups that would then allow them to raise their concerns in a formal way, I guess. There is a theme forming around the October meeting around navigation and information and how people find out about the Peak Park and how they can use the Peak Park and how we might be involved in that. Not sure what the agenda items will be for that yet, but there might be something we can do in October for that kind of thing, or in the meantime as well. So we'll definitely pick up after the meeting. In the meantime, has anybody got any other business they'd like to raise before we close and arrange the date of the next meeting?
Can you possibly a few words?
Oh,
yeah, shall we just give an update?
Yes,
yeah.
please do. Yeah.
We've got an item after the meeting where we'll be heading out to Bruntsbarn, meeting with Peak Park Conservation volunteers to look at some of the works that have been taking place through Access for All. But I also took the opportunity to see whether Rob Kenning could join us to talk through the ranger strategy. We were going to give Rob a couple of minutes, or a few minutes towards the end of the meeting. We're now right at the end of the meeting, Rob. What do you reckon? Do you want a couple of minutes to run through, or is it going to be better for people? Yeah. Or is it going to be better for people to speak to you over lunch and then you can do your full presentation at Bruntsbarn?
I could do 60 seconds, just the headline.
You happy?
Yeah.
Shall I do it from here? Is that okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then we'll be gone in 60 seconds.
So some of you who came for beer on Monday have already heard this, but essentially it's a 5-year plan for the Ranger Service. You will know that I came here last year looking for some feedback about how Rangers could kind of set their direction for the future. And we have a plan, 5-year plan called Rangers 2030, and that's really about more visibility, more presence, so being in the places where people are at the times they're there. That's about evidence-led approach, so data-informed rangering, and that's also about communication, so rangers being storytellers of care, enjoyment, and a respect for the national park. So there's a lot more detail behind that, but there are kind of 3 key themes to that. Be very happy to talk to anybody over the lunch break about what that means in a bit more of a breakdown. Is that okay for now?
Super.
Thank you.
Yes, Rob, thanks. So we've just got the date of the next meeting.
7th of October.
7th of October, date for diaries for the next meeting, please. Same time as usual here. Okay, thanks everyone.
Thank you.